Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. 4 o'clock. So I just call the Public Works and Transportation Committee meeting to order. I have to mention that after this meeting, we still have a planning meeting. So I hope that we can have a very efficient meeting today so that we can make time for the meeting afterwards. So minutes, do I have a motion for the minutes? Move second, any question, those in favor, opposed, motion carry. Next committee meeting will be on May 18th, 4 o'clock, same place. Any addition to the agenda? No, seeing none. So I go to number 1, 2022 National Public Works Week, May 15 to 21, 2022. Suzanne, anything to add to the report?
Mr. Chairman, I have nothing to add, but myself and Jatinder Johal, who's the Manager of Public Works Administration, are available to answer questions.
So any questions? Okay, Carol?
Yes, very much. I'm really pleased that we're going to have the Public Works Week, May 15th to May 21st. I am a little disappointed, though, that it's going to be virtual. Is there some reason we couldn't do at least a booth in the mall or something? Because we've accomplished so much with the atmospheric river, and the staff have done such a great job this year. It just seems like it'd be nice to have, more connection with the people of Richmond.
Through the chair to Councillor Day, we will be looking for opportunities throughout later this year and into the fall to see where there might be ways for us to be able to connect. We're looking to partner, in fact, with the fire department on an event they have coming up in May, where we can feature some of the things that we did on during the atmospheric river event and some of the things that we have in place. So we are looking for those opportunities as restrictions around COVID allow.
Okay, can you update us, please?
Yes, we can.
Good, thank you so much.
Very good. Michael?
Yeah, thanks. Through the chair, the staff, just a few comments. I'm pleased that what is available through the virtual format is going ahead. As soon as things are in person, my near 3-year-old daughter is going to be one of the biggest fans. Diggers are one of her favorite things right now, and she would just be all over if we had some documentation, like kid friendly. So this is the one for Britannia shipyards, just a couple simple pages, some nice images. And then I saw in the report here on attachment 1, page 13, it's kind of got the theme image, that kind of cartoon structure. Do we have any documentation, and where would someone from the public go to pick up like a public works related kind of kid friendly, what are dikes and drainage all about? Do we have something like that?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, we currently don't have that type of information that is kid friendly. We will be posting information on our website that will be accessible to the public, but those are good suggestions that we can take into consideration and see what we might be able to incorporate on the website as well.
Great, thank you, and I appreciate having the article attached in this as well on the pipes are really about people. Thank you.
Andy?
Thank you, and through the chair. Yeah, thanks for the report. I echo some of the comments already made, but also I just wanted to mention that I think the videos could be really cool. I happened to watch one somebody made of clearing the runways at the airport during the snowstorm this year, and they're actually quite intriguing and fun to watch. The other comment I'll just make today is that I really thought the story in the report with Daniel and the city work crew was a beautiful story. It was great to read, and I think those are the kind of things that maybe go unsung sometimes, but they're the kind of things that make a community. I thought that was a fantastic story. I really enjoyed that. So thank you.
Very good. Well, I want to end my comments that, yes, it's disappointing that we cannot plan for anything in person for this year. However, I think we have done a good job in the last year. And even though we were not able to bring people to be in touch face-to-face, the video and the steering project and the feature article are all very good information for the public. And I also noticed that because of the floods, or the threat of the floods and other things, make people become more conscious of what the Public Works Department is doing. So I am happy that we can connect with the public in many different ways. And of course, if we can have in face-to-face events in the future within this year, it would be great. So with that, I would ask for a mover for the motion. Moved, seconded, call a question. Those in favor, opposed, motion carried. And number 2, Recycling and Solid Waste Management Report 2021. Suzanne, anything to add to the report?
Mr. Chair, nothing to add.
Okay, any questions, comments? Michael?
Thank you. Through the chair to staff, I got a few here, but I'll try and work through them quickly. So first off, on our page 21, it mentions about the 160 rethink ideas from those public consultation events and the Community Ideas Hub. That's actually in the actual the report on page 50. It talks about that, and going to the website. Is that something that we like? Is there ways for that to be updated, or is it a continuous fluid document or space on our website, or is it now waiting for the next round of events? And if so, what is the next way that the public can contribute to the Community Ideas Hub online?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, it is a fluid document, and it is something that we will be continuing to promote on our website. It really is intended for ideas that the public can share amongst themselves for in-home ideas. So it is something that we will be continuing to promote and post on our website.
Great, thank you. That's great to hear. On our page PWT 29, this is in the document. The last paragraph on that page talks about commercial services and the pilot projects and getting them to do recycling. So just a couple of comments first. And I'd just like to know if there's any more details about some of the implementation of new pilot projects and like what those might entail. And I know in here it does mention kind of oil collection, oil and grease collection. But what about the open top bins? I still see in the regular places these overflowing garbage bins that are full of recyclable content, and they're spilling over the driveway and into natural park space of the cities. And where will that fit in? And then the other component to this is I know under the maybe sustainability department, the rodenticide ban. Are we able to, when we're communicating with commercial sites around the recycling and garbage, like their whole refuse area, that's also one of the most attractive areas for rodents, and that is often what I see is just the commercial sites are surrounding the parking lots away from the building with their rodenticide traps. Is there a way that we're able to mail out or communicate with all commercial sites to either be part of these pilot projects and also here's some information on alternatives for rodenticides?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, the purpose of the commercial scoping exercise that we talked about was to meet with business and identify what some of the current challenges and barriers are that they have and what some of the things would be that would help them around that. Now, I know that the sustainability group is working on the rodenticide aspect of it, so we can chat with them about that and ways that we could help potentially promote that as part of the commercial scoping work that we will be doing. Because you are correct. I mean, the overflowing garbage cans for commercial dumpsters can be a challenge in that regard.
Great, I appreciate that. Just two more questions through the chair. If I may, just another comment, the recycling, Richmond Recycling app and the Recycling Wizard, I'm on there all the time, and to see that there were over 94,000 searches on the Richmond Recycling Wizard, incredible. I'm probably a few hundred of those myself, but anyhow. The next comment I had, question was related to the C-bins. Is there any, when would we expect an update on kind of the data around the C-bins at Steveston Harbour? And I asked this because I was just on Shady Island, Steveston Island, a few weeks ago, and it was just incredible how much litter I had seen at the high tide mark. So I just want to know how well is it doing? What size is it able to capture? Any information on that now, or when would we expect that?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, we have run into some obstacles with the C-bin because the people who are responsible for that program have changed their business model around that, requiring a city's commit to a number of bins and a minimum $1.1 million per year for that program. So we are looking at another option for that container that is built by another company. And when we are able to get more information on that, we have to cycle back to the Steveston Harbor Authority with respect to their involvement. And when we are in a better position to provide more information, we will provide a separate memo to council on that.
Oh, great, appreciate that. Thank you. And through the chair, last question is related to youth engagement. And in the package, page 48 is highlighting around school and youth engagement. I just had, I guess, just two comments. They're not really questions. One is around the city's done really well at holding on to the green ambassadors of previous years before the pandemic. I know I'm in touch with many alumni students at the school I teach at, and they're still in touch with the city, still working on the electric vehicle program, still being invited by city staff to help out at events and all that. So I think we've done a great job at connecting that aspect of our work, volunteer force. And then the other one is related to school collection of flexible plastic. Since the city did the pilot project at my school, it hasn't stopped, and there's still students every Friday that collect from every room in the whole school all the flexible plastic, and they sort it and they clean it and they send it to the city work shared. So again, an accomplishment of the city to inspire students to do that, and it's with very little encouragement or push. They're committed to it. So it's a great job. Thank you.
Thank you. Carol?
Thank you very much. Through the chair, I own a truck. And so when something needs to get dumped, usually I'm the one who gets the phone call. As I was dropping off drywall, which was bagged and tagged and taped and everything, it has to be double bagged, they turned me back at the landfill because drywall, you're only allowed to have 50 bags a year. Well, it didn't come from my house. It came from my best friend's house, and it came from my daughter's house. And I had to get into a heated argument with the manager because they calculate by the truck, by the vehicle, not by where it actually came from. And I mean, luckily I managed to convince them that they had to take this drywall, and they did. What can we do about that? Because clearly, someone who owns a Prius isn't taking, drywall to the landfill. They're going to call their buddy who happens to own a truck like me.
Through the chair to Councillor Day, that one is a bit of a challenge because it is the Metro Vancouver program at the Vancouver landfill and some of their facilities. We can take that under advisement and speak with Metro Vancouver at upcoming meetings to just ask about that particular issue.
I think that's a good idea, and if you need a letter from council, I'm sure most councillors would agree that, you don't want people just dumping the drywall on the side of the road, but if, they're stuck, that's what they're going to be forced to do. So I would hope that we could change that rule, because it wouldn't be that difficult to just say, oh yeah, this came from this address and this came from this address, and if you have a name and an address and a postal code, come on, that's fair is fair. And then I also wanted to ask, because I have a truck, was asked to take a mattress to the recycling, and my friend had to pay quite a bit actually to dump the mattresses off. And I know we do upholstered furniture at the recycle center. Is there any plans to eventually allow mattresses to be picked up or dropped off, at the recycle center?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, there are not plans at this time just because of the how difficult they are to manage physically. But I would remind that residents do have the opportunity to have those collected through our large item pickup program at curbside. So we do offer that service.
Okay, and is there a charge for that service?
There is no direct charge for residents that order large item pickup through the city. It is an amount that's recovered through their utility bill. So there's no direct charge, but they are entitled up to 6 items per year.
Okay, so if I have it, and she's in a townhouse, if I had those 2 mattresses in plastic bags in front of my place, I'm allowed to have 6 things picked up in a year, and I don't get any extra charge.
Correct.
Correct. Okay, well now I know. Thank you.
Okay, Linda?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you to staff. Well, thank you very much for the report, a great report. And I think it really highlights the work that you've done through pivoting through COVID-19. And I know we missed the in-person events, but I think that this COVID has shown us that the virtual world is very popular. I've talked to many young people, my kids, 30-ish, 40-ish age, and they really appreciate they can go 24 hours a day, look at things online when it's convenient to them. So I think, those types of avenues are going to be really available for us in the future. And I really want to congratulate you on the work you did for the single-use ban implementation. You did a lot of pre-work knowing that we had this coming up. And just wanted to ask you any comments. I know it's only been going for a couple of weeks, but any initial comments?
Through the chair to Councillor McPhail, yes, the initial comments that we've had from business were they felt that the City of Richmond did the best of any community they were in terms of preparing them for the upcoming ban, as well as involving them as best we could and providing many tools that are available to them. So I would say it has been an excellent and smooth transition, and business is quite pleased with how the City of Richmond implemented that.
Well, fantastic. Good for you and all your staff. And will we be getting an update in the future then to committee sometime on this?
Through the chair to Councillor McPhail, yes, we will provide an update as we transition closer to when the bylaw is actually formally adopted in September. Well, it is formally adopted, but when it becomes effective and fines would be applied after September 27th. So somewhere in that time range, we will bring an information memo or report forward.
Perfect. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Andy?
Oh, thank you, and through the chair, well, I'll just echo the great report comment as well, and I think this is one of the reports that has the most impressive metrics in many ways, very easy to read and grasp. I was curious about the reaction from the business community, so that's been asked and answered, so thanks for that information. Just one other question on illegal dumping, particularly in Farmland is where I think it might be most noticeable to people driving through there. And is that a trend that anybody can say is going up or down? I do see it from time to time, and it annoys me to a significant degree. And the other part of the question is the trend up or down. And also, is that something that we've been able to lay any charges? I know it's difficult. You have to search through trash and identify people or have witnesses or have video or something like that. And I'll follow up in another meeting about the idea of perhaps doing some projects on that if the trend warrants it, in terms of how often it happens.
Through the chair to Councillor Hobbs, the trend that we notice with illegal dumping is that when there's a new ban or restriction put in, for example, on drywall or mattresses, we will see a spike in illegal dumping, but it generally settles out to an average number per year, ranging in around the 60 for hazardous waste type materials, and upwards of 850 incidents on non-hazardous materials. Generally, catching the dumpers is difficult, but we do issue approximately 2 tickets per year to people on illegal dumping. It is just difficult to catch them, but our main strategy is to get rid of it as quickly as possible. We do have a service level of responding and cleaning illegal dumping up within 48 hours. We strive to do it even sooner than that if we can, because the longer you leave it, the more likely you are to get additional material there. So our strategy is to remove it as quickly as possible.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, there's even been cases where people leave drums of oil and things like that. And I think from what I've heard in the farming community, they appreciate the city's help and cooperation and assistance and kind of leadership on helping to clean up farmland in particular. Thank you.
Thank you. So Michael, you have another question?
Yes, thank you for entertaining it now through the chair. I was actually, after the manager's report, I was going to ask about what Councillor Hobbs was talking about, if we have metrics. I know in community safety we get maps of where hot spots are and stuff, so that's great. I'll leave it at that. But my other question in the report I didn't get to, I forgot, was on page 80. It lists kind of the community partners and resources. And in there it mentions Richmond Shares. And I've gone to their website recently and just confirmed right now there's only one item listed for all of Richmond to share an item with someone else. So gently used chair and cushion legacy. So I guess my question is, are we providing enough support for Richmond chairs? What type of city grant might they apply for? Have they been successful recently? Do they have space needs? I know we communicate regularly with our nonprofit organizations, but I don't think Richmond Chairs fits in with the kind of community services clientele group that often get asked. So does staff have any comments on how we're supporting Richmond Chairs to actually do more or do what they do better? Thanks.
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, we will reach out to them to just determine what some of their issues are and see if there are additional ways that we can help support them.
Okay. Good. Okay. Seeing no further comments or questions, can I have mover of the recommendation? Move second, call the question. Those in favor, oppose, motion carry. Number 3, solid waste and recycling regulation bylaw number 6803, amendment bylaw number 10361. Suzanne, anything to add to the report?
Mr. Chairman, nothing to add.
Any questions? Andy?
Sure, thank you, and through the chair. Just looking at the current funds and the cost recovery, I think at 24 and 30% on, this is page 92. What is do we have a goal for cost recovery? Is there like a percentage? Is it 25%? Is it 30%? Does it fluctuate? What's our goal in terms of those numbers for cost recovery?
Through the chair to Councillor Hobbs, we don't have a particular goal for cost recovery. This is one of the things that we do look at in terms of helping to reduce illegal dumping, is keeping it to be more subsidized by the city to encourage people to do the right thing. So we don't have a particular goal on cost recovery.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. I mean, because that would be one of the considerations is the unintended consequences or a negative consequence of having a fee that's too high and create some of the issues that we've already just talked about previously. So thank you for that.
Councillor Liu?
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you for this report. I'm always really keen to see what's happening with our recycling, and I'm glad to see so many of the great initiatives. One of the ones, the thermostat, I love that you brought that one in, because I recently moved to the Nest system, and then I have to use thermostat, didn't know what to do with it, and I'm still holding on to it. Now I know where to go. So thank you. But now with on 92, 93, it talks about adding a fee to the non-residential upholstered furniture fee structure. Now, I think it totally makes sense to do that. I'm wondering, can the non-residentials just go directly to the facility? Like would it be cheaper for them to go there? Are they able to go there? And then, yeah, go ahead.
Through the chair to Councillor Liu, we would need to talk to Canadian Mattress to see if they will accept. I believe they will, but I would have to verify that for you.
Okay, because it would be easy for then our staff just to say, hey, you can just go direct, or if we add it to our website. The other thing I'm thinking of too is if we have a fee structure like that, like $50 for a sectional, is it cheaper for those people just to go straight to the landfill? So I think we're kind of walking that weird line where, if it's cheaper just to go to the landfill, would they come to us and bring it in for recycling? We prefer them just to go straight to the recycling facility and just take it there, I think, but yeah.
Through the chair to Councillor Liu, these costs are based on what the city is basically paying for this service to get that material recycled. And because this just targets commercial businesses, what we do encourage is residents take advantage of the large item pickup program. So there's options for them. This is just to help deter business from taking advantage of the city's depot for these services.
Okay, thank you. But are we going to end up with the unintended consequence that it's cheaper just to take it to the landfill? That's my concern, right? Like if you're a hotel and you're switching out your 400-room hotel with all your mattresses, obviously we don't want it to come through the Richmond recycling depot, but we also don't want it all to just go straight to the recycling.
Through the chair to Councillor Liu, we will monitor that. Yeah. This is just to target businesses who should be using alternatives to handle their materials.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Michael?
Great, thank you. Through the chair, just a couple comments and a question. Yeah, I definitely support the proposed fee structure. I know some of the ones we're targeting here and where I sometimes see them end up. So I think we're trying to find that right price, or right cost that will not deter people and have them accept the consequences of having that item or working a company that picks up those items from people. So I think it's all part of the responsibility of consumers and businesses. And then my other comment in this was in regard to commercial landscaping, commercial landscapers. This is a mention on page 92, where they go through a register in advance. Could you just speak a little bit to what kind of uptake is already in that registration for commercial landscapers to get access to the no-cost drop-off option? Do they all do it? Do none? Very few do it? And then I have one other question.
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, the way that program works is as long as they're servicing multifamily or residential in the city, they can go to Eco Waste and apply for the ability to drop off that waste at no charge. There are quite a number who take advantage of that program for sure. I would have to verify numbers if you wanted to know the exact numbers, but it does have good uptake.
Okay, that's great to hear. Thank you. And then through the chair, my last question is, with the changes into what's being received at the work chart, where do these fit in? This is like on the ceiling mount for fire extinguishing. You see the red liquid in there. Is that similar to the mercury-containing thermostats, or are these already accepted?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, I cannot really see what that is, but if you wanted to,
the things are mounted on the ceiling to sprinkle water over a fire in a building. I have one of them that was discarded, and I'm just not sure where to put it.
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, if we could look into that and follow up with you on that item, I would ask for that, please.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, very good. So there's a staff recommendation to have a mover. Move second. Call the question. Those in favor, opposed, motion carry. And then moving onward to number 4, November 2021 Atmosphere River Event Summary and Outcomes. Suzanne and Milton, anything to add to the report? Anything you want to highlight?
Mr. Chair, it is myself and Jason Ho. We're here to answer any questions from committee members.
Good. Andy?
Oh, thanks through the chair. Yeah, sure. Just a couple questions, and very interesting report. On, I think, page 100, talks about the 138 millimeters of rain. And can you just comment on, how close that was in terms of, reaching our capacity to deal with? I realize in the report, and we all know about localized flooding issues, which are serious, but in a citywide sense, how does the city compensate for that? How does our system compensate for that amount of water, and how does it handle it, and how close was that?
Through the chair to Councillor Hobbs, the rain event that we received in November was a 50-year return period event. The system is designed for a 10-year event, but because there's a large amount of resiliency built into the system, the water can go in multiple directions when the pipes do surcharge. And we also have a lot of open water course crossing or water courses and surface storage that is available. And because Richmond is so flat, there's additional capacity there for water to sit and wait until the system catches up before there's actual risk of flooding buildings. So there's a lot there for the system to be able to handle even beyond the design criteria.
Yeah, thanks. And I've seen some programs about Holland, and they have similar systems for capturing water. 2 other quick questions, if you don't mind, Chair. On On one of the pages, it mentions the flow data, and when I read that, I'll confess to being a little bit confused, and I know there's an explanation, and so that's why I'm asking you for it. When they're talking about the peak flows at Hope of 6230 and the peak flow at Mission of 10,700, and then the fresh net average of 9,400 and 11,150. So for a layperson, I always would think that the average would be less than what you would call the peak. So I know there's an explanation for that. So could you give us kind of a layperson's explanation for what that means and why the peak would appear to be less than the fresh net average?
Through the chair to Councillor Hobbs, this is comparing the river flows during the event in November to flows during peak freshet season. So what this is basically saying is the November storm was of such a magnitude and it covered such a large area that the flows in the river approached what we would normally see during freshet season, which is quite unusual. Usually there's not really any impact when we have storm events because they usually cover a much smaller area. But again, in this case, even with the elevated flows during this event, the city's dike system did what it was supposed to do, and there weren't any significant issues.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, a burst of water in a short time period is what it really amounts to, I think, when I was looking at it. Just one last comment, and that is when it comes to kind of natural disasters or catastrophes of whatever kind, and you could think of maybe an earthquake or something, I think we do this, but if you could just comment on the need for the public to be aware of almost the greater the degree of severity of any incident, natural disaster or otherwise, the greater the need and degree for the public to be prepared on an individual household basis to be able to handle themselves independently for a period of time, and sometimes, depending when it is, up to about 2 weeks. So is that something that we communicate to the public I think we do, in terms of education and the self-sufficiency, that resiliency, because government can't always respond like that to everything in all circumstances. Do we do that?
Through the chair.
Go ahead, Dave.
Through the chair to Councillor Hobbs, we are certainly looking at increasing the communication with that respect, both in terms of the city's flood protection system, what it offers, as well as being able to offer different solutions for how private properties can protect their properties in different scenarios.
Okay. All right.
And through the chair to Councillor Hobbs, if I can just add that there is work done by our emergency preparedness group in terms of communicating information to the public for broader emergencies as well.
Sure. Yeah, you can just imagine what a huge earthquake centered close enough and shallow enough would do. And it's something people should at least have some awareness of, is that need to be somewhat independent for an extended period of time. And the more vulnerable you are, the harder that is, right? So government has to prioritize its response. So anyway, thank you.
Good, thank you. Carol?
Thank you very much. Great report. I'm really impressed with how hard everyone worked at the city to keep us all safe, and just a big thank you to everyone in your shirt. I have two questions. We did have at the corner of Gilbert and Blundell a Metro Vancouver sewer access chamber fail, and we heard from the owner, it's obviously a nightmare to have sewer water in your house. What was the end result? I know they were having trouble getting Metro to step up on that one.
Who?
Through the chair to Councillor Days, Ben Diaz from Sewer Operations. If the failure you're talking about was from an access chamber that had internal restraints that had corroded, Metro Van did mobilize and get in there and do the repair with assistance from the City of Richmond staff. Since then, I've been in communications with Metro Vancouver to do an inspection of their entire system. The older system, there's a large portion of the trunk main along there that's being replaced. But Metro Van is going to come in there and do an internal structural inspection during some low flows this summer. They're also going to do another section of a trunk main that belongs to them. So we're in coordination with Metro Vancouver to do inspections and prevent that type of failure in the future.
Well, that's good news. Obviously, better to be proactive than reactive. But what about those homeowners? What happened with them?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, I can speak to what happened to the homeowners during the incident. City staff worked to place sandbags and limit the amount of overland flow into the properties. We also assisted residents for egress and access into their properties. There were some children that were coming home at the end of the day that we didn't want them crossing this liquid waste, so we provided some above surface transportation in the way of similar to golf carts just to get them in and out of their properties. So the city's response was to minimize the damage and then provide whatever support we could to the impacted residents while Metro Vancouver worked on the repair itself. We also did supply some equipment and other resources to assist in the repair and some of the cleanup.
John, you want to take the
Mr.
question?
Chair.
Sorry, so.
Yeah, thanks.
Go ahead.
All right, through you to Councillor Day. I would just add to that, subsequent to perhaps there's a discussion that happened in closed, but we were advised by Metro Vancouver that they had addressed the residents' concerns.
Because I sure felt bad for those folks. Can't imagine what that would be like. Then the second question I had was on page 101. You talk about the flooding to a house in Seacoast. Well, I live in Chalmont, and I know that the neighborhood was built in 3 different stages, and I'm in the middle stage, but this house would have been one of the first houses, probably around 60 years old, and the elevation is so much lower. So flooding in that area isn't a big surprise. So what I'm wondering is it possible for us to advise people who are living in these original homes built 50, 60 years ago, how they can prepare in advance of a flooding event? Because, we know these things are coming. And if they're vulnerable, is there a way that we can educate them on how to mediate it or avoid it in the first place?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, that is something that we are targeting in terms of preparing information material that we can issue prior to the next storm season, just to help residents understand what some of the options and things that they can do to help prepare. So we are working on that with staff and our communications.
That'd be great. And I remember years ago going to the workshop and there was a map and it showed the elevation of Richmond. And much to my surprise, I live on Mount Richmond. It's like 3 feet higher than a lot of other areas of Richmond. And so if you live in the Mons or in the seas, you wouldn't be aware that you're really low. So maybe we can create a map and a list of properties that are vulnerable so that we can just give them that advance notice and advanced information. So thank you very much for that.
Okay. John?
To the chair, just to add to that as well, it certainly is a key thing we've always identified. The low-lying properties are always at risk of these extreme. Certainly, we provide support through sandbagging and what have you from the workshop. But the learning of this event, I think, was that, until such time in the future that some of these properties can be developed and build higher, there's probably a more extensive toolkit we can provide to individual residents with regards to even stockpiling sandbags or other elements right in the neighborhoods of the properties, and have those individuals we know that are more at risk and have perhaps flooded in this event armed with more direct information about their homes so that they can take action in a immediate sense as soon as we see the rising. So we are looking at toolkits and
Good. Okay, good. Michael?
Great. Thank you, through the chair. Just a couple questions on this report. Really fascinating. I really love weather and statistics, so this came together well. Maybe I'll just first mention I remember those days and watching the ditches fill and being a bit worried to leave the house, but also having confidence in the city's infrastructure to get the job done. And where I leave to go to work is actually in the Horseshoe neighborhood. So I leave one potential flood zone for another. And so my first question is around sandbagging, and I know there was assistance provided in the Horseshoe area. But what I noticed around that time was a number of sandbags were just kind of dropped at busy or at kind of inner neighborhood corners. Was that also part of the strategy, or did they just go to houses and then when the people didn't want them, they put them there? Or was and if it was the city that placed them there, could we have a real quick signage like a step stake sign that goes in saying available? If you need more, here's a number. Or if you can't pick these up yourself, here's a number. Because what I was seeing was just like the white bags full of sand dumped in a few spots. Yeah.
Ben?
Through the chair. Okay, go ahead, Ben.
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, city staff would have dropped off sandbags and did drop off sandbags to specific addresses. What I believe you would have seen is after they were finished, they were placed in corners and along some boulevards, and then we would have received calls into our dispatch and we would have went and collected them.
Okay, great, thanks. A follow up on that one. I know there's the Metro Vancouver Air Quality Station that's in that neighborhood as well. And I believe it's a City of Richmond small building that's right beside the Metro Vancouver building. And I think that's where there's a lot of the sandbags stored right now. And that's one of the city's generators that's in that fenced area. So my question is, if that area is of potential concern for future flooding, has the city identified a location within the Horseshoe neighborhood where there could be an inland pump station? I know Jason Ho had, I think he had a more technical name for it previously, but to look at having not just pump stations on the outside of Richmond, but if needed, having some inland capability for that. Has that been noted? Are we looking for a site, or could potentially that site beside the Metro Vancouver one be an option?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, yes, we are currently looking at that option as one solution that could alleviate some of the issues in that area. There has been pre-existing competition inland that serves that area that we could be looking at reinstating. So that review is underway.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And my last question, if I may, through the chair, is in the staff report on page 103 about the works yard and the fuel supply, and that spills onto the next page as well. And it talks about the off-site generators were impacted. I'd just like to know a little bit, like, what was the impact that we had? Was it we couldn't get the fuel out of the in-ground tanks, or was it something else that was the main impact to the off-site generators? Like, for example, in Horseshoe Slough, if the power was out for extended time, what was the issue with getting that generator fueled up? And then related to that, my other question is, like, when are our in-ground fuel storage actually going to be compromised? Like, I mean, I assume water over the surface is okay, but like, at what stage are they going to be result in a disaster, as described further in these paragraphs?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, the impact from the fuel supply piece was that we do have a company that does mobile fueling for us of our off-site generators, and they were not available to us because they were so busy helping out in the areas that were more greatly impacted in the Fraser Valley. We do have one tank truck ourselves that we can fill, but it takes multiple trips. So that's what we'll be looking at, how we can create some additional capacity that will likely come forward as a capital request in next year's budget for things around that nature. And your second question, if you could repeat that.
Yeah. Like, when would our in-ground tanks actually be compromised? Like, they can, I assume, handle water over the surface of them.
Sorry, thank you for that. Through the chair to Councillor Wolf. What we're concerned about with the in-ground tanks is if there is overland flooding and water does enter into the tank areas, it will fill up the vents in different areas and would render that fuel unusable and would severely impact our ability to respond. So we are concerned about water flooding into the tanks since they are in an underground environment currently.
Great, I appreciate that. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Harold?
Yeah, one quick comment, and then we've got a. In terms of flooding of buildings, our house used to flood all the time in recent years, and with these atmospheric rivers, we've had no problem. We put in a sump pump, and we've had no problem at all. So that may be one solution for people. It doesn't cost much, $100 or so, and you can put it indoors or outdoors, and as long as you have gravel underneath the concrete floor, which I would assume most places have, water will simply seep through, and your problem is solved. So that's what we've done. Anyway, the question I've got, you mentioned in the report about the flood control committee set up by Metro Vancouver. We just had a meeting today from 1 o'clock till 4 o'clock. I was a bit late getting here because of that meeting. Mm-hmm. And Harvey, myself, and one or two others, we had speakers from Princeton, from Abbotsford, and Fraser Valley Regional District about what happened there. And basically, of course, they were just totally unprepared. And there's the question that everybody's asking is, well, let's have some more studies. And George Harvey and myself both said, we've had enough studies, and what we need is money. And staff is in the report. We've asked you to share some information. I would appreciate it if you did the information without being asked. Otherwise, we're going to end up with a bunch of studies that we already know. So I think that what we need to do is put together what actually the Richter from Langley said. Let's put together what we know it's going to cost and say this is what it's going to cost us to do these things instead of studying them any longer, and go to the senior governments to get funding. So if you could put together the costs of atmospheric rivers, of sea level rise, potential Fraser River floods and earthquakes, and don't forget storm surges, then I could take that to the committee and say, look, we've got the studies done, we know what we need, and here's what it's going to cost. And I think that's really what we need to get this committee going. And my question is, however, did you notice the storm surge that took out the Stanley Park seawall? Because it was a unique happening on the West Dike, the first time since the dike was built in 1907 that we had white caps outside the dike lapping on the side of the dike. It never happened before. It wasn't the highest tide. The highest tide ever was on the 15th of December, 1998, when it was a foot from the top of the dike. This was lower than that, but the fact that the waves were rolling in because of the strong winds, it was quite different. And I think, and again, the first major storm surge was 90 years after the dike was built. The next one was 20 years after that. These events may be coming sooner and faster. So I just wanted to draw that to your attention. I took some pictures of the water coming in on the West Dike, and it wasn't, the dikes held, they were a foot higher, and the dikes were fantastic. I lost my farm fence outside the dike, 800 feet of it got washed out the logs, but we're out. But I think we need to be looking at those sea berms sooner than later. We were looking at it for a long time in the future. So that's something I'd just like to pass on as well. But if you could, instead of the costing, all this stuff, I'd like to be able to present that to that committee and say, this is what we need. And we've done our studies. We don't need the Fraser River Society, whatever they are, doing studies for us. We've done them already.
Mr. Chair, yeah, I was just in response to that to Councillor Stevens. They absolutely, Council has been on this for many decades, and the document we're talking about is our flood protection management strategy. It identifies the risks, how we're going to address those risks and the costs. We'll certainly forward the latest copy of that to Councillor Stevens for distribution. We've sent that to Metro Vancouver before, and as we've told the Fraser Basin Council, if you're a community concerned about these risks, this is how you do it. You identify them, you identify what the costs are going to be to address those risks. You make the land use decisions locally on how you want to do that. You put it all in a strategy document, and then you use provincial money to go in. Absolutely move forward to you, but that's certainly the message we've been providing to Metro Vancouver and Fraser Basin Council. It's a simple solution, and if various communities require funding from the province simply to do strategy, then that's what the province should be doing with that.
Right, that's fantastic. Okay.
Okay, Linda, sorry to keep you waiting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you to staff. Well, thank you very much for the report. It was a good overview of what worked well and where we can improve. So thank you for that. A couple of questions. With regards to the flooding within the city's jurisdiction, did we have any reports of flooding on the farmland? A lot of that is quite low.
Through the chair to Councillor McPhail. Ben, maybe you could address that question, please.
Through the chair to Councillor McPhail. Nothing outside of what we normally would get. There was no particular agricultural property that was asking for any additional resources or had seen any greater flooding than they would normally be experiencing. So there isn't anything that I can quickly recall that says we had some significant. Now, that's not to say that there certainly wasn't increased water levels, but nothing like we've seen in some of the other areas.
Right. Now, last night at the public hearing, there was a fellow who lived in Hamilton, and he made a delegation about a application, but his issue was that he and his neighbor experienced flooding. So I don't know how many calls you got for in Hamilton, but just FYI that there was flooding out there as well. And congratulations on the public communication. I think, you really have upped your game. And I think, I was following all along, and I know there was many comments from the public who were thankful for the ongoing communication about what was going on and where they could go for help. So keep up the good work. Most of my other questions have been asked. Thank you.
Good, very good. Well, I just want to add that this is a very good report, and I also felt that we have passed the test, so to speak, during last year. However, I think there are lessons to be learned, including the communication with the public, warning of the people about the upcoming threats, and also collaboration with the other levels of government or other jurisdictions. So with that, that's a staff recommendation for applying the knowledge gained from this report for future strategy and planning. So do I have a mover? Second? Call the question. Those in favor, opposed, motion carry. And then item number 5, traffic safety improvements around schools. Update. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do not have anything further to add to the report, and staff are available to answer any questions.
Michael?
Great. Thank you very much through the chair to staff. Thank you for the report. I was very interested for many reasons in this one. And one thing that definitely jumped out at me was the statistic around 83%, I added the two together, of all this Richmond School District sites, the 48 sites. So 83% have an identified deficiency. And that might be as simple as one sign missing or a curb ramp or a crosswalk potential. But that's great that has been identified. And I have to say the page, attachment 1 on our page 111 really gives a great example of what all sites might have when it comes to deficiencies. So my question is, how will this be available? Is it going to be publicly available? Will it just be meetings specifically with stakeholders that the city identifies? Because I know if, like, for example, all of us on council have a community association that we're the liaison for. And so, like, last night, the Hamilton community met. I wasn't there. I was at the public hearing. But this is the type of thing that if they had available, they would discuss it and they would reach out to their networks to get more feedback. And I know there's so much. The Hamilton Association is always talking around the safety of the school. And so they would have a lot to say on these. So do staff plan to reach out to those community associations, and how can others learn about what they could contribute to or confirm based on what the city's already identified?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, absolutely, this information will be available on the city's website. As part of staff's recommendation, we are recommending to inform the Council School Board Liaison Committee about staff's work and future work regarding the comprehensive safety plan around schools. There will be future consultation with stakeholders, including the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee that has representatives from the school district, including the PAC, and as well conversations will be had with the school principals and adjacent neighbors for these sites as the safety plan and strategies are developed going forward.
Okay, good. There's a staff recommendation for receiving for information and be forwarded to the council school board liaison meeting. So move, seconded, call a question. Those in favor, opposed, motion carry. Okay, moving on to number 6, Barnes Drive and Ferry Drive traffic calming report back to, to committee on referral. Staff, any comments? Nothing?
Mr. Chair, nothing to add. We are available to answer questions.
Okay, Carol?
Chair, so this decision on Barnes and Fleury Drive to create some traffic calming by lowering the speed limit to 30 km/h, I think is a great idea, and I have to give staff credit for really listening to the neighbors in this instance. It took 2 surveys to get enough input so we could make an informed decision. And if I was a member of this committee, I would vote for this. So just thank you very much for having the patience to deal with the citizens and get the right solution to the problem.
Okay. Now we have a delegate who would like to speak to committee. Can I have Mr. Steve Badisa? Steve?
Yeah.
You got 5 minutes.
Good afternoon. Okay, good afternoon, and thank you to members of the Works and Traffic Committee. Appreciate all the effort placed on Barnes and Fleury Drive, calming and reviewing the report on the referral. I sent a PowerPoint with, and one of the second page got the illustration of.
Is it just me?
Steve, can you get closer to the mic? Yeah, probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
On the second page, I have an illustration from Google's map of our neighborhood. And can you hear me well?
Yes. It's better.
And on that, when we take a look at that, I'm not in a position to be able to take anyone and walk through a neighborhood. So from Google's map. And when you look at this, the proposal we're requesting really reducing the speed for about 140 meters, which is an exposure in front of the straight line point in front of 8 residents. And that's a very small distance, as you can see there in the illustration. This is a neighborhood that has a single point of access, off of number 5 road using Back Road. There is no through traffic, so the only traffic we have coming into our neighborhood is residential traffic only. There's no commercial or industrial traffic using single point of entry, meaning that you come in one way, you go out one way. So it's just local traffic. And some of that traffic that comes in will be the residents, family and friends, deliveries, you'll have perhaps contractors coming in for renovations, but it's just local traffic. We're not seeing a larger community coming in using our street. The other thing also, when you take a look at this, you'll also see that there's no real pedestrian structure in place, as there's no sidewalk. There's also no infrastructure cyclists. There's no marked bike lanes. So really what we have here is motorists and cyclist pedestrians using Barnes and Fleury Drive to walk on. So we've got not only residents in our neighborhood, but we also have residents that come from Back Road, from residents of both Delta Green Housing Co-op that use our oval, the oval design of our neighborhood for walking dogs. Second is the Great Townhouses homes, also located on Bath. Delta Green Housing Co-op is located at 1260 Bath Road. Great Townhouses are located at 1291 Bath Road. So we have elderly people walking their dogs, or of all ages, but mostly elderly. We've got young families coming into our neighborhood with their children riding their bicycles. So not only are the children or families with children impacted in our neighborhood, also members of our community in our neighborhood and using our streets for walkability. So what concerns me is when you look at the distance and the request to reduce speed, I've also provided a chart here for the benefit of 50 kilometers. And I've done the speed and distance, and really there's a second saving traveling at 50 kilometers an hour as opposed to 30 kilometers an hour. And I put some destinations as well. The only way to maintain that advantage in 7 seconds would be to eliminate traffic control, stop signs, and intersections. But as intersection controlled by intersection lights or stop signs, two vehicles traveling at 30 kilometers and 50 kilometers basically come to a stop at the stop sign or at intersection. There really isn't much of a savings at 140 meters. I could understand if it was a longer distance, then there was this hesitancy. But in a short distance, and with the 90-degree corners, looking at the map, there really isn't any advantage of keeping at 50 kilometers an hour. But one of the concerns that I thought for road safety is the 4 that was reported to IPC in the report back from the referral by the Transportation Department. Even though it doesn't involve pedestrians or cyclists, because we don't have pedestrian infrastructure in place and we don't have infrastructure for cyclists, if we have speeds right now 50 kilometers an hour, motorists are having difficulty controlling their vehicle at 50 kilometers an hour in our neighborhood. Then it becomes a concern as a parent, and it becomes a concern for myself because the responsibility that a motorist has when they see pedestrians, basically, they're vulnerable to that motorist. And if we have 4 incidents not involving, and that's by the grace of God that we don't have any incidents involving a child or an adult, pedestrians of any age, or cyclists. But these incidents have to involve another vehicle. So how is it that vehicles cannot see each other, how drivers can control their vehicles at the speed limit, and right, what was stated was that speed was not a factor.
Okay,
That means
Steve,
under 50 kilometers an hour.
Steve, we have difficulty hearing you. Can you turn off your video? That may be better.
Okay, I can do that. There we go.
Okay.
Yeah. So there we go. And so the concern is that at the current speed, at 50 kilometers an hour speed limit in such a short area, that motorists are having difficulty using their vehicles safely on our streets, where we've had 4 incidents in 5 years. And we're very fortunate, like I said, not involving pedestrians and cyclists. But the concern is that the safety of cyclists and pedestrians when we don't have the infrastructure, and I may be repeating in case it wasn't heard the first time, that with the absence of pedestrian infrastructure and infrastructure also for cyclists, it places a greater responsibility on motorists entering our neighborhood. And if we've had 4 incidents up to this point, it does become quite a concern. And our request is that to inconvenience other drivers, and if looking back at the first report that was sent, the majority of our neighbors maintain the speed of about 33 kilometers an hour, which is sufficient. It's just deliveries coming in. We've had one in particular that was very concerned in that time frame that we had the recording device of 56 kilometers an hour. And the thing is that what about the rest of the year? How many times do we have individuals driving up to 50 kilometers and over, and we can't have anything monitored there? So please take into consideration some of the issues I've raised. The last issue I want to raise is that we do have families here with young children that attend Mitchell Elementary. And with the traffic congestion in Mitchell Elementary, there are about just over 12, 13 children that walk to school, ages from 5 in kindergarten and up, that walk to school and walk back. And without the infrastructure of sidewalks, it is concerned that children that are not in school zones, that are walking in an area with no sidewalks, and that was one of the biggest concerns that we had. And in regards to the safety issues for road safety, this is a concern that dates back to 2015, which was requested by a large number of neighbors, and the city has always come in and assisted us. And we're asking once more if the city can come in and address issues for and against, because we have to take this on all serious. And please take this in a great consideration for issues that I've addressed in haste this evening, as well as a report from the committee.
Okay, great.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. So any question to the delegate? Saying none, thank you very much. Any further discussion on this topic? Is there a mover for the staff recommendation? Move. Second. Call a question. Those in favor? Oppose? Motion carried. Thank you very much. Now moving onward, manager's report. Any manager's report? Oh, Fred?
Yes, Mr. Chair, just two quick updates. First one is on the traffic circle that was recently installed on Robson Drive and Bernard Drive. The traffic circle was pursuing in response to complaints from the nearby residents about public road safety. Since the installation on March 23rd, the traffic circle was well received, as we have not received any complaints from the public. The second update is regarding the George Massey Tunnel Replacement Project. We have been informed about upcoming public comment opportunities from April 25th to June 9th. There will be 2 in-person sessions, one in Richmond and one in Delta, as well as 2 virtual online sessions. Staff will be attending the in-person session in Richmond, as well as both the virtual sessions to hear back of the community, and we'll be reporting back to council.
Thank you. Any further reports?
I hope we can know about them.
Seeing none. Michael, you mentioned in the beginning.
Mr. Chair? Oh, sorry, Mr. Chair. I do have 2 brief reports.
Go on. Yes. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, 2 brief reports here. As informed through a memorandum circulated in April 11th, the city is going to be participating in its 3rd City Nature Challenge from April 29th to May 2nd. The event is part of Richmond's overall celebration of Earth Day, which is on April 22nd, and includes collaboration with the Richmond School District and the Richmond Nature Park to improve local awareness about Richmond's unique biodiversity. Registrants can participate by photographing local plants, animals, and insects, and logging them onto National Geographic's iNaturals app. The city is currently promoting the event through various outlets and will be hosting a free webinar on April 22nd to teach participants how to register and use the app. The second one is the information on the Invasive Species Action Month, which the city is currently preparing to observe in British Columbia in May, with a series of information initiatives to improve local awareness about the threats of invasive species, including social media posts. If COVID provincial restrictions allow, the city is proposing to host a booth at the Brighouse Library branch on May 17th to May 22nd to talk to Richmond residents and provide information, literature, all related to the management of local invasive species.
Wow, very good.
Thank you.
Any more reports from staff? Okay, Jason?
Mr. Chair, just a reminder that Stage 1 water use restrictions are taking effect May 1st, and they will be in place until October 15th. Properties will be permitted to water their lawns 1 day a week, and each property is given a day and time depending on whether they are residential or commercial, and if their address is even or odd. In terms of communications, we will be issuing a news release prior to May 1st. The city webpage has been updated with this information. There will also be regular social media posts throughout the restriction period. And Metro Vancouver is doing a media release and interviews as well as other advertising avenues such as social media, digital ads, postcards, and billboards. And they will also be notifying landscape, irrigation, and industry groups, as well as school districts directly.
Very good. Okay, no further. Michael, you have a question for staff, right?
Yeah, thank you. Just on there was a few management reports there. I won't go on long here, but I am meeting with the Richmond Nature Park Society tonight as I'm the council liaison for it to again share the update that staff provided, and they are well aware of their role in it this year. Previous years it was David Suzuki Foundation as a partner, but they're definitely welcome to take it on. And then secondly, I again thank the staff. I encouraged us to get the language matching with Metro Vancouver when it comes to water restriction. I think that will definitely help in this first year of this new level of regulation. But my question, if I may, just one question through Chair to staff, is about the invasive species campaign for the month. I'm concerned we're seeing a lot of invasive species spread through natural areas, and a lot of it is blackberry, and a lot of the main method I see us do is bring in the flail mower and mow it right down, but the root systems just spring right back up. And then there's areas like our Richmond Nature Park, which are blackberry only ever really spread in my lifetime in those natural areas. And I know that the city has some volunteer events for invasive species removal this weekend, last weekend with the Lower Mainland Green Team. But I wonder, do we have staff availability to actually go in a bit more technical way of removing invasives when we want to encourage the natives to take back that space? So do we have staff trained or staffing availability to do that work, and are we doing any of it in this coming month? Thanks.
Staff?
Through the Chair to Councillor Wolf. Yeah, through the Chair to Councillor Wolf. We're currently looking at different options for management of blackberry throughout the city. There are different management techniques that we currently use through different operational teams. This month will not include any specific invasive species polls, just due to the COVID restrictions and all of some of the sensitivities related to that. But staff are currently looking at opportunities in the future, hopefully in the summer months, to encourage some more interactive methods, awareness campaigns, including potential plantings in and around certain areas. And more information will be available to all of you should they come to fruition.
Great, thank you. That's all.
Okay, thank you. So seeing no further questions, may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Thank you. Motion carry. Meeting adjourned. Bill?
You want me to go there, or? Okay. Dialed in. Okay, let's make sure we're connected here. And okay. Okay, we'll call to order the Planning Committee meeting of April 20th. And I'd like to add to the agenda number 4, which is referrals regarding construction and hours. And with that, I'd like a motion for the agenda. Moved, seconded. All those in favor, contrary carried. So that's our agenda. Motion on the minutes. Moved, seconded. All those in favor, contrary carried. The next item is a revisit back to revise the rezoning consideration, the applicant on Benny number 3 Road development for rezoning the property 4700 number 3 Road from auto-oriented commercial CA zone to a new high-rise office commercial zone, Aberdeen Village. The item was deferred from April 5th, the Planning Committee, and I entertain that and put that on the floor. And there is a recommendation there to deny it. And Mr. Craig, do you want to just refresh us on this and before I open it up to committee? Hello? Am I not getting?
Go ahead, sir. Great. Thank you. Thank you,
Okay,
Mr. Chair.
sorry.
If I may.
All right, Sarah, you're on.
Good afternoon. After this item was discussed at the April 5th Planning Committee meeting and deferred to today's meeting, staff met with the applicant. In your agenda package today, in addition to the staff report discussed at the last Planning Committee meeting, is a memo outlining what the applicant is prepared to commit to. The applicant continues to request the ability to keep the additional density granted in exchange for providing large floor plate leasable office space. The applicant has changed the request, is no longer asking for the rezoning consideration to be removed. The applicant is now asking that council revise the existing rezoning consideration that limits office space subdivision and is offering to make an $80,000 voluntary contribution towards affordable housing to offset costs the applicant would have incurred if they were to redesign the building to remove the additional density bonus. In the revised proposal, the applicant proposes to maintain 2 of the larger floors, the top 2 floors of the building, as large floor plate leasable office space, floor size strata units. And on the other 4 floors of office space, allowing up to 38 strata lots total in a range of sizes from 650 to 3,600 square feet. Staff recommend that the applicant's request be denied as the revised proposal does not comply with city policy. Thank you.
Okay, I saw a hand, but I didn't. Okay. All right, committee. Carol?
Yeah, thank you very much to the chair. So to staff, I did quite a bit of fooling around and talking to you guys today, and I really appreciate all the information you gave back. I'm just curious. When we received a very 40-page report today from the applicant showing other properties that are for lease. Now, some of them I don't think are built. There's one, was it here? Atmosphere at 7960 Alderbridge is going to have 134,000 square feet, but I don't think that's built yet, is it?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, no, that project is not built.
Okay, and then there's really only 2 that are on number 3 Road. One is 4935 number 3 Road, 50,000 square feet. I believe that one is built, right?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, yes. However, that site is a retail site. That is not an office site.
Okay.
Staff did have an opportunity to review the material that was circulated to council. In terms of the information, I'm not sure what the applicant's intent of providing that information was. However, in reviewing that information, the majority of office space located in the city of Richmond is small floor plate, as staff have indicated. The only exceptions are offices that are located in automobile-oriented office parks and the Atmosphere project, which you previously referenced, which is not yet.
Yeah, there was one at 5671 number 3, the Lux, which has a 14,000 square feet. So there really wasn't anything to compare, in my mind, this proposal that's up for, revision or not today with what's actually out there. So the question I keep asking, and I know it's a very difficult question to answer because the building wouldn't be built for 2 to 3 years, but is there a demand for what we've required the applicant to build, which is 1 story for each customer, so to speak?
Through your worship, or through the chair, I should say, to Councillor Day, I think that's a bit of a chicken and the egg conversation. It's hard to indicate that there is demand when the space doesn't exist. I would go back to the intent of the policy. The intent of the policy was to encourage the provision of large floor plate office, as that was not currently being provided by the market in the city center. By providing this space, we leave the opportunity available to attract larger firms to the city center, which produce larger economic spin-off benefits than small firms traditionally provide, and are suitable to the smaller 5,000 and smaller office strata units that are available in the city.
Just one last question through the chair. So if we insist on doing this 1 floor per customer, there's nothing to stop, from what I understand, an owner for stratifying or subleasing a part of that space. If they don't need 10 or 11,000 square feet, they could lease it out to someone else for a period of time, and then if they ever need it, they can bring it back into their envelope. Is that correct?
Through the chair, yes, that is the benefit of lease space versus strata space. Once strata units are created, those units will exist in that configuration for the lifespan of the building. It is virtually impossible to adjust. The leasable space can be adjusted periodically to suit tenant needs. Depending on the lease arrangements that are actually entered into, subleasing would also be an opportunity or potential.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Andy?
Thank you, and through the chair. Thanks for the report on this, and I think I have an appreciation for some of the major factors in this, and I appreciate and I think I understand the rationale for the policy that requires large floor plates, and I understand that that's what the project was started with, and that was the plan. And I think the report also touches on the current market and market forecasts with regard to what potentially the market will be like for large office spaces, and that's all good. I have looked at the proposal from the applicant as well, and if I understand it in a very basic way of looking at it, we have right now a 10-story building, which was, and correct me if I'm wrong, is why I'm doing this. We have a 10-story building that essentially has the density bonus, which amounts to kind of the 10th floor, maybe a little bit more. Without it, it would be 9 floors. Without the density bonus, if it was just 9 floors, the applicant would be able to basically subdivide each floor how they see fit. It's a density bonus that is attached to the large floor plates. So the proposal that the applicant has now submitted has the top 2 floors, 9 and 10, staying as the large floor plate size, which in my mind accounts for the density bonus and more. It has the 5th floor being divided or subdivided, proposed to be into 2 spaces, which are relatively large floor places. Forgive me, I'm a little foggy today. So, and then it has floors 6, 7, and 8 being subdivided into no more than 12 units with an average of 650 square feet, or let's put it this way, nothing smaller than 650 square feet. So, and then there's about an $80,000 contribution to the Affordable Housing Reserve. So if I've summarized that relatively accurately, can you just, you're nodding yes? So
you are correct. Your assessment is bang on.
Okay, well, it's good to be correct once in a day. So for me then, I'll just put it this way. I understand why staff makes the recommendation that they have, because that's policy, and I think that's staff's role is to apply policy as it's written, and I appreciate that, and I think staff does a tremendous job outlining things for us, and I really did enjoy reading the report. In this particular case, and I'll leave it to the chair for his guidance, I would support a compromise as proposed. I think the two top floors remaining as one large office space, those two, and the fifth floor being divided in two, and the other ones as I've already described. I think that's a reasonable compromise given the information that's been provided to us both by staff and by the applicant, and I think that could be, not to be too trite about it, but that could be a win-win. And I think that we aren't compromising our policy too much. I think in a previous meeting, Harold, or Councillor Steves, articulated the importance of policy and not subverting our policy totally and just throwing it out the window. Those are my words. And I agree with him on that. But I think it's also the role of council to make reasonable exceptions and discretionary decisions with regard to policy, and that's our role. And I think staff and council working together, we can achieve that. So those are my thoughts, and I'll wait for the guidance from the chair on how we'd actually achieve that if other people agree with me. Thank you very much.
Okay. Harold? Okay, you're muted. There we go.
Yeah, thanks. First, a question to staff. The 10 floors under this policy, would every floor be the large scale setup? In other words, no individual portions. Would they all be one floor each?
Through the chair, the 10-story building has 6 floors of office space in it, and in the policy would call for those 6 floors to be floor-size strata units.
Yeah, all 6 would be. So we're getting 2 instead of 6. Okay.
Correct.
And when I spoke in referral back, I asked if we could work this out if we were able to achieve equality. If we were able to capture the lift. And I guess the question I've got, having 2 floors instead of 6 floors, so having 2 floors of full office space and 4 floors of mix, does that cover the change in policy, or what would the value of the increased floor be? Because I don't think $80,000 does it. That's really what I want to know. My concern is that we have to be very, very close to achieving, to absorbing the lift they get for the extra floor, based on the fact that only 2 floors are going to be full scale and 4 floors aren't. So how close are we at capturing the lift?
Through the chair to Councillor Steves, unfortunately, given the time that was allotted since the previous planning committee meeting, we did not have time to conduct that type of economic analysis as to what the value of the additional approximately 11,000 square feet of office would have been. We were only able to discuss with the applicant what they would be willing to do to try and meet the intentions of the policy and the statements that they provided in the previous at the previous meeting.
Okay, because my concern is still there that any ones that are already built but haven't been sold yet, or are under construction, or even coming, can ask for the same concessions, and that's a bit of a concern unless we capture the lift, or at least most of it.
Okay, thanks, Harold. Okay, Jack?
Yes. Well, as I said in the last meeting, I still support the policy spirit, which is to have larger floor areas to attract bigger companies. However, I think when we make this policy, nobody can predict that the changes that happened in the last 2 years, 3 years. And I think we are only responsible to adjust our practice according to the changes. I think what is being proposed right now in terms of floor area and divisions is a good compromise. If I take the first 2 points, right, the level 5, 9, and 10, basically, we are talking about having 50% of the floor space still being big, very big. And I can not imagine that at the in the market right now, we can have 3 tenants taking 3 floors each right now. So I think even although level 5 is going to be divided into 2, but we're still talking about a large space of 3,600 square feet each, even if it's being divided into 2. So it's still a big space. So I think this kind of mix would be a good compromise in response to the market changes. Now, I want to ask a question about levels 6, 7, and 8. In this revised proposal, they are talking about space of 650 square feet each. I want to know, in comparison to other office space in Richmond, those strata office space, is 650 square feet each be the norm, or is it already larger than the norm, or is it smaller than the norm? So how does 650 square feet fit into this continuum from large, medium to small?
And through the chair to Councillor Rao, it's a bit of a difficult question to ask, as it's difficult to obtain comprehensive data for all office space in the city centre. I would say that within the city centre, we have strata lots that are less than that. We would also have strata lots that are larger than that. In terms of a office space of 650 square feet to 800 square feet, you're generally looking at your smaller businesses, your small business firms, under 10 employees type of operation.
Okay, good. Yeah. So, and as I said, my bottom line is that I don't want to see buildings being built and be empty. So I think with this kind of revision, it might be more practical than before. The only thing I'm not sure is that the cash contribution, is that good enough to offset the bonus being given to the application. So I only have questions about what would be a fair cash contribution to justify this kind of revision. So I will leave this question to staff or to further discussion. What would be a fair cash contribution if we adopt this revision?
Through the chair to Councillor Rao, I think if you're looking for the similar information to what Councillor Steves has requested, that would take time for staff to review how much value is generated by the approximately additional 11,000 square feet that is obtained through the density bonus.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Alexa?
Thank you, through the chair. So question to staff. Okay, so the proponents come forward with a sort of a hybrid offer. Is there any sort of difference? Is it more valuable to have the large floor plates on the higher floors, or would it be more valuable to have them on the lower floors? Like, is there a difference at all, or are they interchangeable as we see them?
Through the chair, the advantage of having them the advantage is, I believe, having them located adjacent to each other, and they are both large floor plates. So were they the two lowest floors, it would actually be less square footage.
Okay. All right, because like I remember working in an office building, when I was at KPMG, and sure, we had 4 floors downtown. There was internal stairs. There was all kinds of things moving back and forth, and yes, we had the full floor plate. So I can see the benefit of it. Certainly, a group like that's not necessarily coming to Richmond anytime soon. But certainly, I know where we're going, trying to create that space, but I also see what's happened because of the pandemic. So we sort of started this before pandemic. And how many projects, comparable projects, are there then that are taking advantage of this density bonusing that have come before us?
Through the chair, there recently approved is the thinned proposal, which includes a office building in it, also under the same policy, density bonusing policy. And there is a mixed-use building that has office space in it that also received a density bonus on Beckwith Road.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Carol, again?
Thank you very much. Yeah, I had another question, but I wanted to say that I think that Councillor Steves is right. We have to make sure we capture the lift. And if staff didn't have enough time to do the math on this, then I don't see any other option than to table it or send it back one more time. But I had another question about if the floors, the 3 floors, level 6, 7, and 8, are allowed to be stratified into these 12 miniature strata lots with a minimum size of 650 square feet, would that not affect the parking requirements for the building?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, it would not have an impact on the parking requirement.
Okay, so we're still good. That's good. I was worried about that. How are we going to put everybody? I think we need to take another look at this. I think the hybrid that's been proposed is very similar to the proponent sent us a 40-page document, and I've been inside the Airport Square building on 73rd Avenue in Vancouver, in South Vancouver, and what's interesting about that is you literally have 15,000 square foot spaces and down to 2,300 square foot spaces. So they've kind of done the same thing as what's in that building, and I think that's a good working model. But having said that, when you get a density bonus, then the city has to get their share out of it. So if we're not 100% sure on this one, I would support putting this aside, and let's get the answer to Harold Steve's question.
Okay. Anybody else for the second time? I get a quick question, and I've tried to get the answer to this. How many, and do we have metrics on attracting large firms to Richmond for the downtown core? Do we know how many we're going to attract? Or have we attracted any? Is there a lineup? I mean, I haven't talked to the developer, so staff have. So I guess this is one of the things that we want is larger firms in it. So that's what we want, but do we have the metrics that there is a demand for it? Or are they all 800 square foot with 10 employees or 12 employees? I think I mentioned that last meeting too as well. Where are our metrics?
Through the chair to Councillor McNulty, it's difficult to produce metrics on demand for space that isn't built. Anecdotally, we have certainly heard over time since the creation of the Resilient Economy Strategy that there is a lack of this type of leasable space in the city centre, and the metric that we use to kind of monitor that is the vacancy rate. And so we have access to vacancy rate data for Richmond as a whole, which currently is around 9%, as well as locations that are within 500 meters of rapid transit, so city centre, and that vacancy rate is less than 5%. And that ratio has been pretty stable over the previous number of years, showing that the demand continues to be higher in the city centre, and there isn't that supply to meet that demand. So this is a high-level metric that we use in terms of actual number of firms that have inquired about this kind of space in the city centre. That's not the kind of data we're able to capture.
It's a pity, because I think it's something we should try to capture, to know what businesses are in here and what their square footage is and what people require. Because at one time we used to talk about incubator neighborhoods and what have you with 20,000 square feet, and that fell flat in its face. And if we had gone that route, for those that remember, we would have had all kinds of problems on it. So anyhow, anyhow, it's a question I have. Joe, I see your hand up.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Of course, I don't have data for you, which is maybe what you're looking for, but, you know, you've got to, my advice is do not doubt Richmond's ability to attract large office-based businesses. You actually have a very good track record of attracting those sorts of businesses. They're just in a different location. They're in the business park areas out, along 6 Road, etc. Not the greatest location in terms of transit accessibility. What you're trying to do here with the policy and the city centre area plan is you're trying to make provision for large businesses in your city centre area. And if you chop it all up before it's built, you will not have any success attracting such businesses because you won't have suitable premises for them. So, there's a bit of a chicken and egg going on here. And you really should have confidence in the appeal of Richmond for office-based businesses because you have a deep history of those sorts of businesses, just not in city centre. And Katie referenced it. Your office space, it's most viable in the city centre. Right now, even with the pandemic, that's where you've got your lowest vacancy rates. They're around 5%, which is a very low vacancy rate for this. So if the concern is that you might build a white elephant with these large floor plates, I'm going to suggest to you that there's a very low risk of that occurring.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I have, did anybody else want to say anything before we, okay, I think in fairness, I think we should, I'm going to offer an opportunity of the developer or developer's representative to address the committee. I think it's only fair. Come on up here, Mr. Leung, and then the committee can ask questions, okay? You've heard the discussion up to now, okay? So I guess well, I'm not going to ask questions. I'm going to let you have say first.
Good afternoon, Chair and councillors. First, my client, the property owner, like to convey his appreciation for the chair and the councillor to take on this matter, and especially the staff has been working very hard with us. Whether or not we get the grant to do it, they still commit to work with the city and still like to be part of the development in the city of Richmond. So to answer, I think Joe's have a good, very question. Is about not downplaying the Richmond, but Richmond does have an opportunity with some big tenant to coming in. Like on the atmosphere, they have 175,000 square feet. And there's some big development there too. Unfortunately, in this small development, the small developer we have dealing with now is because of they have no other leverage to make the building available to the general public, because we don't have 1,000 square feet unit of residential to support the office tower. So this is a single building with an office with a big square footage is very difficult. The concern we have now, if you look at the record on the last marketing information I provide, all the lease is all negotiable. When you have the lease is negotiable, that means the market is not taking a good rental. So for the small developer like my client, it will be difficult to build the unit. And to answer Councillor Au's question about the size of 650 square feet, why is this square feet that is appropriately? And I did the Aberdeen Square go back to 10 years ago. My average square feet on 200 units is 350 square feet. So 650 is not a small office. And at the time that the demand on the smaller square footage, you can get a little bit more higher rent for substantial on the cost. And so to answer your Mr. Councillor Au's question, 650 have an office of at least 10 people for today's market. So it's not a small office at all. And Councillor Steve, when he mentioned about the contribution, yes, I think in this case, because of the cost escalating with the supply chain coming on, laboring is keep on going up, just the steel price is going up 10%. So by the time when we get ready to build, I don't think the developer have the leverage to give up any more contribution. Not we don't like to, there's not enough money there. So like I say, my client and my property owners very, very appreciate that we have a chance to go through 2 meetings. Whether or not we get the grant on the approval to change, it's not going to change the heart and the mind to develop in Richmond. Because we've been working with the staff, very good support, and same as the councillor. So that's what I can say, yeah.
Any questions? Committee? Carol?
Yeah. Well, if Councillor Day, if this is a residential tower, I think Councillor Steve is 100% correct. But in terms of the market, in today's office market space, there's really have no room for any developer to contribute a little bit more than that. And as long as you know, we just heard the news this morning with the 11:30 radio station. There have a lot of people will be leaving if they forced to go back to work with not that demand. So we see the trend is going backward. But I think the reason why I send you this marketing information is the atmosphere. It's a nice project. They have a nice office building, but still not quite full yet. And the small building, the small developer who developed this building with only one item is office and one bottom line of retail. They just cannot make it, but they still want to do work in Richmond. And that's the reason why we have to come so many times to plead for support to make it work, yeah.
How long is the atmosphere building that's not quite full, how long has it been available for lease?
Well, they have been on the market for almost more than 3 years. And they have 175,000 square feet of office space. But now they still have over 75 leasable space. So I think that's a really good location. I think that building will be success because with the big residential 7 residential tower around it, it should be fine. I agree with what the staff just say, yeah. don't downplay the Richmond office market. I'm not downplaying to get ourselves into this position. We just need help.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, good. Then thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, committee. What decision to be made? Andy? And then Andy first, play.
Well, I've already said what I thought about the proposal that the applicant has made as a compromise. So I guess my question is, the issue of the lift or the contribution is a valid one. So are those two things, do they have to go forward or wait together, or could the proposal go forward pending final agreement on whatever the agreed amount is? Or is it just easier just to wait and find out what the number is?
Okay, ahead.
Through the chair to Councillor Hobbs, if it was council's or committee's desire to understand what the value of the additional square footage would be, we would recommend that this would need to go back to staff for us to do that analysis. Ultimately, what the applicant is asking is for adjusted rezoning consideration in order for us to capture any future additional value through a voluntary contribution. Would need to include that in the rezoning considerations.
And then just a quick follow-up, if I can. What kind of time frame would that be, just out of curiosity, ballpark?
In order for us to get a truly accurate number, we would need to engage some appraisals in order to come up with that number. So it's hard for me to give an exact time without knowing what consulting firms may be able to undertake such work on short lists. I would suggest that we're looking at minimum 2 weeks, more likely closer to a definitive number.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Jack?
Yes, I would support that we refer this back to staff so that we can give staff the time to give the answer to our questions. So yes, I would say that let's refer this back to staff for the work.
All right, well, we'll get a couple more speakers. Harold?
Yeah, I'd like to second that referral. And I have a further question of staff. If you could do the analysis of what the lift is, but also $80,000 is not a lot of money. And I'd like to know what the increased value of the four floors are. If it's more than $80,000, then the owner should be able to absorb that extra $80,000 to build a one-story smaller building. It seems to me that they should be able to absorb it. So we'd have two choices: either capture the lift or they absorb the increased value.
Okay. All right. Now, was that a motion?
Yeah, to refer back.
It was a motion and it was seconded. Okay. Okay. Seeing that we're reading that we're not going to go one way or the other in terms of the recommendation is to refer it back to capture the lift. And not only capture the lift, but if from my perspective, is there a compromise in the lift by dealing with some of the other floors or the floor plate sizes that absorbs the lift? You follow what I'm saying? If they took another floor and made it bigger or smaller, I mean, it's very difficult to take area and equate it to money. So I guess that's what I'm trying to get at. So is that possible to earn it? With the 10 stories, 5 are divided into 2 spaces. Should maybe the 6th floor be divided into 2? And that takes care of the lift and the money doesn't matter. I'm just hypothetically, okay? At the moment, it doesn't matter now. We've got the lift, if you wish, in that by area size as opposed to cash size. If you come back and say, well, it's 75,000 or it's 95,000, that doesn't tell me anything, okay? I don't know if you can do that or not, but I know you got capable hands on it. Jack, I still see your hand, okay. So anyhow, is there anything else in terms of direction? Wayne, sorry. I'm trying to play both.
I was just going to say, through the chair, I believe we can capture the information that you're looking for. If I am to understand, in terms of establishing a value for the additional square footage, that is relatively easy to do. We would then be looking at what's the differential value between strata space versus lease space, and then trying to quantify at what point there may be a break-even point. The other part of this discussion is obviously we would need to work with the applicant to see if there is actually the ability to provide that contribution. I think you've heard the applicant say that they feel that they're at the sort of tipping point now, but would be happy to work through that.
Yeah, it appears to me the committee thing. So the motion would be to refer this back to be put on the agenda of the next planning committee meeting 2 weeks hence.
Is that enough time?
Well, staff said there was enough time.
Okay.
All right? Are we all clear? Alexa, okay? I see, I'm just checking with committee member. Harold? It's okay to bring it back in 2 weeks and put it on the agenda?
I thought staff said it might take a month.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yes, through the chair, if I could just clarify, we'll do our best to get back as soon as we can. I'm not sure if we'll be able to undertake the necessary appraisals within 2 weeks, but we will. So I would suggest the option would be just to refer it back to staff for a future agenda. We'll put it on the agenda as soon as we have the information and are able to discuss with the applicant.
Okay. I mean, we can always defer it from the next agenda as well. That's what I'm trying to do, keep it active.
I think that not putting.
We can take that approach.
Take that approach? Okay, staff said they can handle it, so we got staff to do it. Okay, all those in favor? Contrary? Carried. Okay? All right, so that's referred. Okay, thank you very much. All right, the Steveston Waterfront proposal plan. Anything to add to that, Mr. Hopkins?
Mr. Chairman, we have nothing further to add, but I would like to ask Mr. Kevin Eng to just provide a brief summary of the report.
Okay. Go ahead, you're on.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of quick comments. This report and the proposed amendments to the Steveston Area Plan and Zoning Bylaw are being brought forward in response to the previous February 8, 2022 direction provided by committee to remove the allowance for mixed commercial residential uses along the waterfront. The proposed changes apply to the waterfront area only on the south side of Bayview Street between 3rd Avenue and Number 1 Road. Along this waterfront area, the proposed land use change would no longer permit residential uses or development. Commercial and industrial development will continue to be permitted along the waterfront. Coordinated with the proposed changes to the Steveston Area Plan, zoning bylaw amendments are proposed for the 6 properties along the waterfront area that would remove the allowance for residential uses, as zoning for the area currently permits various forms of residential development. In response to information requested by Planning Committee on 3866 Bayview Street, a separate memo will be circulated to Council for information purposes in the near future. We are happy to answer any questions of committee.
Could you repeat exactly what you said earlier with regard to commercial and residential on the south side? I understand there will not be any. Is that not correct? Any further?
Mr. Chair, the proposed amendments before you would restrict and no longer permit any further residential development or mixed residential and commercial development along the waterfront south side of Bayview Street. Commercial development and or commercial combined with industrial development will continue to be permitted along the waterfront.
So on the proposal that I have suggested, where we have an open lot down there, that could happen on that space?
Mr. Chair, I believe you're referencing the property at 3880 Bayview Street, the former Imperial Oil site.
Correct.
residential, through the proposed amendments that are before you, any form of residential development on that lot would no longer be permitted.
But a mixed use could be.
Mr. Chairman, perhaps I can jump in here. All we're really doing is we're removing residential development from those waterfront properties on Bayview. Now, currently, they're a mix of, commercial, some are zoned industrial. So what we're removing, and that would continue, the commercial and industrial would continue, but we're getting rid of as directed by committee, we're getting rid of the residential uses. So condos would be gone, caretaker residential would also be gone. And that was consistent with the direction. But the commercial uses and the industrial uses, they would continue.
So I could build a coffee shop there.
Absolutely, if you have commercial zoning.
And that's not, that wasn't, in my opinion, what the referral is. So I can put a building there and block off the access to the water.
No.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to tackle this one as well. The referral to staff and the direction, we understood to be quite explicit. It was to remove the residential component, and that's what we are bringing back to you. But we were not asked to remove commercial use or industrial use. There was, I think, a closed item regarding a particular property, and we would need to go to a closed meeting to talk about that. But we were not asked to sterilize these lots for development and not allow any commercial or industrial use. It was the residential use that was at issue, and I thought it was quite clear. But if we misunderstood it and I misunderstood it, I apologize. The only other issue that we're flagging for you is that some of the industrial zones, even though they only allow a two-story building, they do allow 20 metres of height, which is quite a lot more than, for instance, on the other side of Bayview. So we didn't receive direction. We just flagged that. If that's a concern for you, then you should give us a direction to make some amendments there. But it's just the residential that we're removing.
Okay. Andy?
Thanks, and through the chair. Well, if there's any confusion, I'm sure it's not on staff's part, it's probably on my part. So, the report actually, I was a little bit surprised by it actually. So, I'm not, in my mind, convinced of the distinct separation of commercial and residential in that area on the south side. So, and I don't find that the walkway issue, which is the one that I remember dealing with more clearly, and the public access to the boardwalk, which I completely support, I don't find that inextricably linked to development along the south side of Bayview, whether it's commercial or whether it's a mixed use, which it currently is. So just a quick question. A, is the boardwalk issue that we dealt with and the public accessibility to the waterfront, which I think everybody supports, is that somehow inextricably linked to whether it's a commercial or a mixed commercial residential use on any of the properties that are in this report?
Through the chair to Councillor Hobbs, perhaps I'll take that one on. Council did recently amend the Steveston area plan with respect to the boardwalk and access points, especially when there is redevelopment opportunities to strengthen access to the waterfront. Through that report, we did receive this referral. Maybe to speak to possible confusion here, the Steveston commercial zone is a mixed-use zone, and our Steveston area plan talks about mixed uses. So certainly, residential is not permitted along the waterfront on its own. It would have to be combined with commercial uses. in all cases. So we certainly understood the referral as to remove residential uses only, and we do apologize if we misunderstood that, because the terminology used in the Steveston area plan is mixed commercial residential. So I just wanted to provide that clarification.
Sure, and just a couple other questions or points. Yeah, no apology required on my part, because I think the confusion's all here. But just a comment about the height comment that you mentioned. Yeah, the 20-meter height issue, just speaking for myself, that would be a concern for me on the south side of Bayview in particular. And I understand it's the cannery style building that was envisioned there. I wasn't present for those conversations, but yeah, that height would be a concern for me. But just to double check, with any development, residential, mixed use, commercial, residential, as it stands now, not if this goes through, council has the ability to control that in terms of form right now, correct? As it stands now.
Through the chair to Councillor Hobbs, that is somewhat correct. We have the Steveston area plan has guidelines on certainly the height of buildings and the land uses, but there is existing zoning right now in place along Bayview that does allow residential uses combined with commercial or industrial uses.
Sure, and I noted a couple of the pieces of correspondence. I think from one was from a Mr. Chow, and he expressed some of his concerns with this proposal. So, sorry. I'll just wrap it up with this comment. And I stand to be corrected, and I will reserve the right to change my mind at some point. But I don't think I support this recommendation at this stage. And because in different cities around the world, including Richmond, I find one of the more attractive aspects to development along the waterfront or even in downtown cores is actually the mixed combination of commercial and residential. And I'm not talking about massive residential developments here, because we're talking about a very small number of buildings with very small potential for a caretaker suite or an apartment above or something like that, like one. And so we're talking about very small things here. But just philosophically, I do like the mixed use of commercial and residential, and that includes in the Steveston area. And so as a blanket policy, if we were to do this, and just as a blanket restriction of no residential above I think the few properties that even would be eligible for this, I don't think I'm going to support this, but I will listen to other people, and I stand to be convinced. So my last question would be, and I think you explained it in the report, but can you just tell me how many properties are even eligible as it stands right now? I'm not talking about the empty lot. I'm talking about the buildings that exist there now in terms of caretaker or potential. I know that Brian, somebody has another letter in there too about an apartment. How many are we actually talking about? And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Jack?
Oh, sorry. There was a question in there. How many?
No.
How many?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Take it away, Kevin.
Just wanted to
Mr. Chair, in response to Councillor Hobbs' question, there are 6 properties that are subject to the proposed amendments. Of those properties, all of them allow some form of residential development or use permitted in the zoning. 3 of those properties have existing IL or light industrial zoning. Those properties allow for a caretaker residential suite. There are 2 properties that have Steveston commercial zoning. Those properties currently allow for more intensive apartment residential uses in combination with commercial development, as Mr. Hopkins noted earlier. And one of them has a site-specific zoning. That zone is similar to the Steveston commercial zoning. It also allows for apartment housing in the form of a mixed-use development. So as noted earlier, in summary, all of the properties allow some form of residential development. 3 of them allow for residential caretaker. 3 of them allow for more intensive apartment residential type uses in the form of a mixed-use commercial residential development. I hope that clarifies.
It does. Thank you very much.
Jack?
Well, basically, I have two questions. The first question is, what is the benefit of taking away the residential use of the properties in this area? Apart from, okay, it becomes more unified in terms of form and use. Other than that, what's the benefit of really taking away this residential use? And secondly, I'm really concerned about the letter submitted by one of the people. I think he represents 3800, if I'm correct, on our page CLN 79, because I think they complain about the changing of the goalposts since 2017. So again, I don't know how fair it is, to a property owner that we keep changing the requirements or the permitted use. And again, I think in terms of fairness, how fair it is.
Through the chair, perhaps I'll tackle that one. I think that in dealing with this referral, we need to remember that this was a direction to staff. So we were directed to bring forward amendments to remove the residential based on the discussion at committee. And that's what we've done here. There were probably pros and cons to removing residential. Councillor Hobbs alluded to the appeal of mixed use. Maybe some cons of having the residential there is the interface with the water, the public access, the walkway. It's a very public space. And you could argue that by bringing residential into close proximity to it, you're starting to privatize it. So residents might feel that the noise from public use, the hustle and bustle, is a nuisance. People might feel less comfortable being, on those walkways and moving along the water because they have a sense that they're in someone's front or backyard. Another advantage of removing the residential, but not actually reducing the density, is that the buildable square footage that can be built, the potential buildable square footage, will all be business based. And arguably, you could argue that it's actually the businesses that make that area appealing, not condominiums. So, folks go down to the waterfront for perhaps a meal or to a store or something like that. And by removing the residential but allowing the density to stay the same, you have the opportunity to put more business uses which are pulling the visitors into that space. Condominiums really wouldn't do that at all. So it is a little bit subjective. There are pros and cons. Staff are comfortable with removing the residential, and it's your prerogative, but the recommendation is actually based on the direction that we received.
Okay. Okay.
No, I'm fine.
Okay, Carol?
Thank you very much. If we look at the map, it's really quite clear on page 74. It shows we're talking 6 little wee lots in between 3rd Avenue and Number 1 Road. This is the jewel of Steveston. It's the waterfront. It's where everyone goes to have fish and chips, buy fish off the docks. It should stay the way it is. I don't want this turning into another condo building. We don't need that on that one little stretch of waterfront. Furthermore, on page 71, This supports, in the second paragraph, it says the province's approach of not supporting use of water lots under their jurisdiction for residential purposes. So they're on board. They want to keep the waterfront, so that people can buy the fish off the boats and people can go down and shop in the stores and keep it vibrant. If you fill it full of condos, which is the 60 meters or 20 meters thing is terrifying me. And when we're finished with this, I'd like to make a motion that we don't allow 20-meter high buildings on Bayview. That would be a nightmare. That would really ruin the feel of Steveston. So the only caveat that I would say to this, I think we absolutely must protect the waterfront and protect the character of the Steveston village. And so I would support this, with maybe one tiny caveat, that if someone did require a caretaker unit under 500 square feet, I can live with that, because eyes and ears in the evening is a good thing. But I wanted to ask staff's opinion about that.
Through the chair to Councillor Day. Well, I guess there could be a mix of opinions on whether a caretaker unit is required or not. Typically, a caretaker unit is required in an area where there isn't a lot of residential nearby. Certainly this area, there's some residential, within 50 to 100 meters. So there could be a mix of opinions whether one is really required for, what a caretaker unit was originally intended for. So at this point, we felt that the caretaker unit would essentially be a residential unit, and is why it's suggested to be removed based on the referral to staff.
If I may just add to that, I think that if you remove the caretaker unit, because some people are trying to sort of stretch the caretaker unit into a waterfront condo. So I think that for some reason, sorry, a cat here is just attacking me. If you remove the caretaker unit, if somebody has a compelling reason to have one and it's modest, you can deal with that through a rezoning. You can deal with it with a zoning amendment, and that's a very powerful way to control that, rather than putting it into the zoning or leaving it in the zoning and then having to fight a bit of a rearguard battle.
Well, that makes sense. So basically, we could go ahead and approve this, and if someone does need a caretaker unit, a small one, maybe if a marina is there's some reason, some compelling reason to have eyes and ears on the site 24/7, then at that point we could change the zoning slightly to allow for that small caretaker unit. So yeah, I have no trouble supporting this. I think that if we don't protect the form and character of Steveston, we're going to regret it down the road. And like I said, I do want to make a motion to make sure that we don't get any 20-meter buildings down there. Thank you.
Okay, Alexa?
Thank you, through the worship, through the chair. Staff, how much housing could have been provided under the existing FAR on that whole strip? Do we have any rough idea?
If I can pass that over to Mr. Ang, would you be able to respond to that?
It's difficult to get specific information about the total amount of residential units. What I would refer back to is what the current area plan allows for on the south side of Bayview Street, which is 1.2 FAR maximum and a two-story building topology, keeping in mind within those parameters that your residential development must be contained on the second level of the development. So considering that, I don't think another factor on top of that is the ability to have off-street parking to support both the commercial uses and the residential uses. Those are all factors that are going to determine the extent, amount, and total number of units for the area. And I don't think I would have the information at hand to provide an estimated unit count based on that.
Okay, would there be an estimated square footage amount, like 60,000 square feet of habitable space, 30,000, 10,000?
I don't think I'd be able to have that figure.
Through the
available.
chair, we don't square footage number. Approximately half of the floor space, if you assume that the upper story is residential, half of the development could be residential. But I think Kevin made a reference to parking. You could make a real hash of a development down there trying to do the residential. You know, you could end up with a very heavy-handed approach to the development and the parking in order to get the residential in there. So the way I would look at it is not so much perhaps we don't need to do this because we wouldn't have got much residential anyway, because it's difficult to do. I would tend to look at it as doing the residential may well create really clumsy development where the parking is, trying to get the right amount of parking is dominating the streetscape to the detriment of character.
Okay. But I was still trying to get a feel for how many homes it may or may not be, and then because in the whole Steveston area, there's not really a whole lot of places where there's a lot of opportunities for density just yet, are there?
Through the chair, actually, the Steveston area plan created additional density throughout the town site. It was done a few years ago now, but other than the 17 designated properties where the policy is to protect them as much as possible and enhance them, the rest of the properties in Steveston can be redeveloped with more density, including residential.
Okay, thank you. I'll just make a comment on this property then. It seems to me that, if I was going to live in the Steveston Village, I'd love to live on the water. And to me, that's prime residential. So whether or not I can have a car, that's another issue or not. Maybe it's not an issue because maybe I don't need a car if I live down there because everything's walkable. But on the other hand, are we saving it just for industrial? Isn't that where you actually want to live? And if we think it's a premium, maybe we should just be tacking on affordable housing contribution onto the residential portion that's allowed there. And, same kind of rates as what we're doing for city center condos. If people want to live there and there is a premium for living on the water, are we saving that specifically just for businesses? And we know that how many businesses go out of business every summer in that Steveston area, in that Steveston Village, because there's not enough people living there. So, we're saying it. We have one group that wants to bring in more people to live there. They want to bring in a project, and they were sold it and convinced to buy it in good faith that they would be allowed to do it, and now we're pulling that away from them. So I don't think that's fair either. And I think Steveston's going to develop. Steveston's going to become more interesting, more bustling, and more of still what it is, I think. But you have to have more people in it to make it so. And I think that the jewel pieces are along the front, and that's where you're going to want to live, and that's where the redevelopment will start first, and then everyone will decide, I want to live down there.
Okay, Andy?
Thank you, and through the chair, thanks for the second opportunity to talk. I'll keep it brief. I think protecting the character and nature of the Steveston area is very important to everybody who lives there. I'm there every day. So that's without doubt, and that's not in dispute. We're just talking about how we are going to do that to a actually very small part of the Steveston area, but a very crucial part of the Steveston area, and that's being the waterfront. So to answer the question about housing, just looking at the area we're talking about and how many apartments and how much square footage and everything, you don't need to be a planner to realize that you're talking about a very small number of apartments, if any, in those number of buildings. And nobody is talking about a massive condo building in Steveston. That wouldn't be supported by anybody, I don't think. So that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a few apartments in some of the existing buildings, or perhaps one that remains to be built. So Yeah, actually, listening to the discussion, it's helped me solidify my opinion, and I won't be supporting the recommendation, although Councillor Day has brought up an interesting point about the 20-meter height, which I mentioned as well, and I'll wait to see what she has to say about that, because my understanding on that also is that it actually comes from, and I can be corrected here, I believe that 20 meters originally comes from the heritage desire to replicate the old cannery-style buildings along the waterfront, which is similar to the building that the Ketch and the Blue Canoe are in. I think it comes closer to replicating that than other buildings, but I understand now there's a desire probably not to have buildings that high there. So, but I think that came from an honest place, the 20-meter limit. But I'll be interested to see what the recommendation is or the referral is that we have on that. So thank you very much.
Okay, Chuck, for the second time, and that's Scott, get on.
Our staff. Now, actually, if we retain, and I mean, we keep the residential component of the use, we can still control the percentage of the residential component and the form of the building and things like that, right, in the future. Even if we allow residential use of it, it doesn't mean that we have to give a large proportion of this land for condos. We can limit it to a certain percentage. Am I right?
Through the chair to Councillor Au, that is correct. You can control the percentage. It is a secondary use as well, that you would have to have a primary use of commercial first before you could have residential.
Okay, great. So if that's the case, I see that, there's no need to change the existing permitted use. If, commercial and has to go first, right? Residential is only secondary use. I think, well, might as well. There doesn't seem to be the strong need to change it.
Okay, we do have a recommendation on the floor, and there is no confusion in my mind. We have an outstanding referral, which is unfortunately we have this in front of us without status on the outstanding referral. But anyhow, I think this should be referred back, to be quite frank with you, and I'd like mixed commercial defined, so I know what's going on there. There are opportunities for people to rezone and redo. And I think we better be careful. It's great to stand up and boast that we're going to save it. And it's a jewel, and it is a jewel. But I think we've got to be very protective of it. You never know what development is going to come forward and somebody's going to offer, et cetera, especially with an open lot. You may never get near the waterfront. We fought like hell from 1980 to 2000 to get what was there. And we were very lucky. We could have had for those that were around then, Bob Bealey wanted to have an inn right on the waterfront, about 25 units, okay? And I'm not going to mention anybody else because I might incriminate some people, but some people are very close to people on this table on it and wanting to develop down there. So I think if we're seriously thinking of protecting the heritage, et cetera, I think before we go any further, we define what further can be done down there. I don't want any housing whatsoever. That's not doing. I thought there was more to my referral that I put forward than that. So some people around the table are confused, okay? So anyhow, I think it should be referred back to further define what can be done there. What is mixed commercial? What are we going to allow down there? If it's fish and chips, like Carol says, all right, we know exactly what it is. But I can see somebody coming back with a 2-story something or other, and before you know it, and or a story and a half, and we're going to be in trouble down there. So, anyhow, that's just my opinion. Okay, there is I'm not going to support what's here to go forward. So I don't know what committee wants to do.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
First of all, we seem to have lost Harold.
Harold's gone to Metro Vancouver.
Okay, then absolutely we should not be voting on this tonight.
I was hoping, that's why I tried to get Harold.
I will support the referral back because I don't want to see a vote on this go forward. Okay. I think if we've because it looks like the vote would be a 3-2, which means it would pass, and which is to deny this and go back to what we have right now. I think we're making a big mistake if we ruin the jewel of Steveston.
No, I don't think it'd be 3-2. I refer it back to staff.
Yeah, I'm okay with, I'd rather do that than vote on it.
I'm going to move a refer back to staff.
I'll second that.
Let me finish. Further definition of exactly what we would allow down there in terms of what is mixed commercial, so we know exactly what it is, and, or whatever it is, and bring it forward, and that staff further follow up on the in-camera referral, okay, that's on the waterfront. And I agree with you, I would like Councillor Steves here.
Absolutely.
Andy? Do I have a seconder?
A seconder.
Oh, okay, second. So it's on the referral?
On the referral. Yeah, I can support the referral, and I agree, there's no need to vote on it now. There's nothing urgent, and I agree too that Harold, obviously, I mean, the town's named after his family, so it would be nice to have him present for the discussion, and something tells me he'll have an opinion about it, so he should be here. So yeah, I support the referral. Thanks.
Anybody else? Yes. All right, all those in favor? Contrary? Carried. All right, let's get it on, folks. But anyhow, we have the Cultural Harmony Progress Plan. Dorothy, where are you? There she is, my partner.
Mr. Chair, hi.
Yeah.
I have nothing to add to the report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Very good report. Keep up the good work. Move receipt for information. Move seconded. All those in favor, contrary, carried. There you go.
Okay.
Great work.
Number 4.
Let RCSAC know next time too, okay? All right, we have, next item is referrals. I have a referral from last night, and Carol has 2. Oh, you didn't pass these out, did you? I'm sorry. Anyhow, I got them. Yeah, you pass them out while I'm talking. I'll make mine. My referral is regarding the construction from last night, and that is refer to staff to review the feasibility of implementing and requiring a bond for builders and developers to maintain construction and single construction and multiple construction sites in a manner that respects the community and neighborhood properties. And if I can get a seconder to that, I got a seconder. I think we had tremendous discussion of public hearing last night, everything from mud on roads to trucks blocking roads, et cetera, and we respect what staff have done in terms of having a parking management plan prior to developing, and in fact, I think we need to look at that plan being distributed to the community, that they're going to be there for 4 weeks or 6 weeks, and this is what it's going to do, and that we whatever an amount is, and if they violate it, and the fence falls down on me when I'm walking, or I have to walk through the mud, I report it, and they lose X dollars off it, or they're fined or whatever. So I leave that to staff to do it. It's refundable if they're good, clean corporate citizens. And there are some that are, but there are some that are pretty sloppy. And everything from their traffic management and flagging to whatever. Anyhow, I leave that to come back when you can. And also in it, a plan of how to complain. You know, if there's trucks in the road, I think it was brought out last night, do you phone bylaws? Do you phone the RCMP? The RCMP says we can't do it. It's a city issue. Do we phone the work yard? Whatever. How do we document it and it be brought in? So anyhow, I hate to give staff more work, but I feel it's a major issue out there. And I along with others, I'm sure, are hearing about that. Anything on that? All right, all those in favor? Contrary, carried. Carol has two.
Yeah, it's actually,
Hours of construction. You want to read what you've
it's-
got? Could I ask staff, well, you put it on the floor and then I'll ask the question.
so the motion is regarding construction hours in residential areas, and it is just one. I just had two options, but it is one. That Steveston review the construction hours, sorry, thinking about Steveston. Let me start again. I'm just really flustered about that. Okay, that staff review construction hours and report back on the impact of prohibiting outside construction at 6 p.m. And then I talked earlier to Councillor McNulty, and I think he had what would be a friendly amendment that they couldn't start until 7:30 a.m.
Let's ask, I'll second that, but let's ask staff to examine. Our garbage pickup starts at 7:30 in the morning. But we allow construction starting at 7. Do we have a consistent time of when the city wakes up and starts on the job? I think 7's a little early to start banging hammer, nails, and saws.
Mr. Chairman, we can take a look at that. Some would argue that a civilized start would be 9:30. I'll just remind you, though, that when we looked at this a few years ago, it was actually through our bylaw department. It was pretty well debated with the developers and builders weighing in. So we're happy to take the referral, but at some point, I think if we're talking about a significant change, you'll probably want to do some consultation on it as well.
Well, we have some different times of things starting, and there's
Yeah,
some
and
inconsistency.
in the referral, we'll make sure that we're not, starting with construction.
Yeah.
We'll see if we can align things like garbage pickup with construction type thing.
Well, like Saturdays, you don't start your lawnmower till 10 o'clock. Whatever, okay? So those kinds of things, so they bring in line. All right, it's on the floor. Staff will take it under advice. Move seconded. All those in favor, contrary, carry. I may not have a quorum here in a moment.
Councillor McNulty, I neglected to do another motion about the
Go ahead.
20-meter height in Steveston. Remember, we were going to do that right after the Steveston.
Can staff take that under advisement?
We don't need a referral to have.
Make it come back in the.
We can do that, yes.
Take it under advisement? Okay, it's on the books.
I think we only have 3 of us left.
Okay. All right, you have that second.
Okay, yeah. Good. Thank you very much for everybody for looking at these construction hours. And, I think 7:30 to 6 is much better. The reality is, people have to put their kids to bed. They have to, get a decent night's sleep. And they can still work inside painting or doing electrical. That's quiet.
That's it?
That's it, yeah.
Oh, I thought it was 2 of them. Okay.
No, just
All right, anything on managers' reports?
Yes, Mr. Chair, just a quick update regarding seasonal farm labor accommodations. There was a memo circulated to Mayor and Council last week from myself providing an update on the city's actions to try and legitimize or bring into conformance with bylaws a few seasonal farm labor accommodation operations that are happening throughout the city. Since the time of providing the memo, we have actually had one of the 2 farm operations that had not yet applied apply. So as of this moment, we have 1 farm operation which we understand is conducting or does intend to provide seasonal farm labor. We will be working with our community bylaws and Richmond Fire Rescue to conduct some inspections and determine whether any enforcement action is needed against that farm operation.
Excellent, thank you. Anybody else? Alexa? You're muted. Nope, you're muted. Alexa's muted.
Can't hear you.
You're muted.
You're muted. Can you hear me?
You're still muted.
No.
She must be having a technical.
No.
She's got her hand up now.
Got her hand up, but at least we can wave.
Can't hear you.
No, we lost her totally. I should be able to unmute her. How can I unmute her? That's you. You're the host.
No, I can't.
This doesn't work, right? So I don't have to worry about that. There she is.
Can you hear me now?
Now we can hear you.
Oh my God.
Jump up and down, stamp your feet.
Okay. Councillor McPhail wanted to talk about us getting together with the MPs and the MLAs and getting staff to organize a meeting between us so that we can figure out how we can best take advantage of the housing opportunities, funding opportunities.
Okay.
And so if we can have a motion to get staff to help us
So moved.
organize a meeting.
And
Thank you.
direct staff to organize a meeting in the near future with the MLAs and MPs, with the topic being housing. Seconded? All those in favor?
How we can best take
Contrary,
advantage of
carried.
those.
Done.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay.